Costly partner.
Good evening, hello and welcome to the news today. This is your primetime destination, newsmakers, talking points. Today marks 8 years since Narendra Modi was sworn in 2014. It's a day when we could look at the hits and misses. The opposition says there have been plenty of misses. The government says there's been lots of hits. What are the hits and misses? We'll have a political face-off today. Also, the big controversy of the day, an IAS officer walks his dog inside the stadium, preventing athletes while athletes are kept out. Is this classic VVIP Raj, and what can be done to change it? We'll be looking at that too. But first, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9 to 9. Narendra Modi completes 8 years as Prime Minister. Prime Minister to mark the occasion on the 31st of May with lakhs of farmers in Shimla. Congress releases 8 failures of the Modi government in its report card. As the Prime Minister visits Chennai, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin lists his demands on stage, says don't impose Hindi on us. Mr. Modi responds by hailing Tamil culture and language. In Telangana, Prime Minister Modi has a dynasty attack on Chief Minister KCR, says we must save Telangana from family Raj. The Chief Minister stays away, doesn't attend the Prime Minister's function. Enforcement Directorate files a charge sheet against Congress leader D.K. Shivkumar in Karnataka, raids key Sena Minister Anil Parab in Mumbai. Both the leaders claim political vendetta. India Today traces the email trail between Karti Chidambaram aide and a Chinese official in the visa bribegate case. CBI grills Karti, who dubs the case as one of political vendetta. Another Centre versus Trinamool Congress flashpoint. Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee to replace Governor Jagdeep Dhankar as Chancellor of all state universities. Bengal Cabinet to table a bill soon. Masjid Committee continues its arguments on its claim of non-maintainability of the Hindu side plea over the Gyan Vapi Mosque in Varanasi court. Next hearing scheduled for 30th of May. VVIP walk of shame by a senior IAS officer in Delhi shocks India, evacuates the stadium so that his dog can take a stroll. Athletes are kept out. Chief Minister Kejriwal forced to step in. Now bars any move to shut stadium for such VVIP acts. India's spectacular 16-0 win against Indonesia at the Asia Cup Hockey edge out Pakistan by goal difference to advance to the Super Fours round, qualify for the next World Cup as hosts.
Taking a deflection of the stick of the Indonesian.
But let's start at the top with the big breaking news that's coming in, because what we've seen today in Chennai is interesting. And a standoff between Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin and the centre, because Mr. Stalin has reignited the language war. Mr. Stalin says, don't impose Hindi on us. He said this at a stage where the Prime Minister was there. The Prime Minister on his part assured that Tamil language was eternal, its culture was global. All of this coming as the Prime Minister visited Tamil Nadu for the first time since the DMK government came to power there last year. The Prime Minister also laid the foundation stone for 11 projects worth over 31,000 crores in Tamil Nadu. The DMK has been chafing at what they call is the attempt to impose Hindi on Tamil Nadu. Listen in to what the Prime Minister and the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu had to say.
This is land, and this land is special. The people, culture and language of this state are outstanding.
பழமைக்கும் பழமையாய் புதுமைக்கும் புதுமையாய் உலக செம்மொழிகளில் இன்றளவும் சீரழமை திறத்தோடு உயிர்ப்போடு விளங்கக்கூடிய தமிழை இந்திக்கு இணையான அலுவல் மொழியாகவும் உயர்நீதிமன்றத்தில் வழக்காடு மொழியாகவும் அறிவிக்க வேண்டும். இறுதியாக மருத்துவ மாணவர் சேர்க்கைக்கு கொண்டு வரப்பட்டுள்ள தேசிய தகுதி மற்றும் நுழைவுத் தேர்வு நீட் முறையை தமிழ்நாடு அரசு தொடர்ந்து எதிர்த்து வருகிறது.
To our top story tonight, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi completes 8 years in office, the only non-Congress leader to do that. The BJP is planning big celebrations over the next couple of weeks. The highlight will be a farmers' rally to be attended by the Prime Minister in Shimla. The Congress, meanwhile, has released a report card on the Modi government where it's listed what it calls the 8 major failures of the government. It's our top story tonight.
न हमारी नम्रता छोड़ेंगे, न हमारा विवेक छोड़ेंगे.
26th May marks 8 years in office for the BJP. May 26, 2014 changed the political discourse of the country. NDA was at 336 seats. The BJP on its own crossed the halfway mark, 282 of 540 Lok Sabha seats. On 26th May 2014, Narendra Modi took oath as the Prime Minister for the first time. In 2019, the BJP with the NDA would register an equally emphatic win. It's been an 8-year journey and the party's all set to commemorate it. With many programs planned across the country between 30th May and June 15th to celebrate the Modi government's 8 years in power. Also, a massive rally in Shimla with an eye on elections in Himachal. But the opposition has come up with its own 8-year report card, slamming the BJP for what it's called 8 years of misgovernance. The Congress released a booklet, 8 Saal, 8 Chhal, Bhajpa Sarkar Vifal. The 8 alleged failures of the BJP claimed by the Congress. 1. Inflation. 2. Unemployment. 3. Flagging economy. 4. Anti-farmer policies. 5. Politicizing defense forces. 6. Politics of hate. 7. Indian security at risk. 8. Backward classes left behind.
सभी नारों की, वादों की, जुमलों की समीक्षा करें तो मोदी सरकार की प्रत्येक नाकामी उनके द्वारा दिए गए वादों, नारों और जुमलों के अंदर आपको देशवासियों साफ दिखाई पड़ेगी.
कांग्रेस के विचार, व्यवहार और संस्कृति अब उत्तरोत्तर उस अवस्था में पहुंच रही है जो सर्वथा देश और समाज के लिए त्याज्य हो रही है.
The true test, the actual report card, will be one delivered by the people, and the verdict is not far. General Elections 2024. Bureau Report, India Today.
Well, joining me now is the Congress's spokesperson Supriya Srinath. We were also hoping to be joined by the BJP's Sardar R.P. Singh, but he has been unable to join us right away. Let me therefore go to Supriya Srinath. Unfortunate that the BJP spokesperson has not joined Supriya Srinath, but I want to understand. The Congress is saying that this is a year of misses. Yet, election after election, Supriya Srinath, over the last 8 years, it is the BJP which has been proven triumphant. Not just general elections, but as we saw a few months ago in crucial assembly elections as well. So is the Congress clutching at straws when you claim that these are 8 years of misses? You seem to see the glass half empty, but the voter is clearly seeing the glass as half full.
No, but what are we supposed to do if our average economic growth between the 10 years of UPA was at 8.3% and it's down to under 5%, 4.7 to be precise in the last 8 years? What are we supposed to do? Hail the Modi government. If price rise is unprecedented, should we hail the Modi government? Should we hail the Modi government that unemployment is at unprecedented levels? Urban unemployment is close to 10%. And Rajasthan has actually had to bring out an urban, Manrega sort of a policy ensuring employment. What should we do? What should we do when the China is building a second bridge in the Pangong Lake and our MEA spokesperson says that's an occupied territory, which actually rubbishes the claims of our armed forces for the last 60 years. What are we expected to do when 700 farmers are dead and no less than a governor in the from the government of India actually says that the Prime Minister turned around and says they haven't died for me. They were supposed to double farmer income by 2022. The farmer is earning a measly 27 rupees a day, and the Standing Committee on Agriculture, where many members of the government are there, turn around and say that this is a pipe dream. You cannot double those incomes. What do we say when armed forces are not being treated well? I mean, what do you want us to do? Hail the Modi government for the 8 years. It's been 8 years of absolute disaster. Winning an election is one thing, but that does not give you the right.
No, nothing gives you the right to trumpet yourself based only on winning elections. But the fact is, elections matter in a democracy. At the end of the day, it's the voter who decides. So you're questioning the BJP's track record over the last 8 years. The BJP is saying, look, at the end of the day, we have provided a series of welfare schemes. That's their big achievement. They've looked at digitization. They've looked at vaccinations. These are the 3 or 4 points that the BJP is consistently highlighting as strong achievements of the Modi government. And at the end of the day, if that results in election victory after election victory, either something is wrong with your communication or there is a serious credibility crisis that today faces the Congress party here.
I'm glad you mentioned 2 things, and I would want to talk about that and then answer your direct question. You spoke about welfare schemes, and this government and all its state governments don't stop talking about free ration. But in my state of Uttar Pradesh, the DMs have issued orders, of course, under an official notification that came from the government of Uttar Pradesh, that if you actually own a motorcycle or a color TV, you've got to return your ration cards. You will no longer be covered under the Food Security Act. Forget about free ration being given to you. If at all ineligible people did get ration cards, even if I were to believe this government, why should you not penalize the officials? Why are you taking ration cards back from people who've lost their jobs and who are earning lower wages? So that's the true color. Elections are over, ab ration vapsi hogi. The second thing that you said, vaccination. If you remember, when Corona did break out and months before it did, many people had warned the government, including my leader Rahul Gandhi, that the government should be prepared. There's a tsunami on its way. The government chose to topple a democratically elected government, to go do Didi O Didi in West Bengal. They did zero preparation. And I hope you haven't forgotten, and nor have the viewers, the absolutely atrocious, heart-wrenching sight of Indians dying on the street without treatment, without oxygen. Vaccination, you really want to talk about that? Because I wish the BJP representative was there. I don't know why they're not. But if you really talk about vaccination, we completely bungled up vaccination. Unlike the rest of the world, we were the vaccine laboratory of the world. We were the absolutely latest to vaccine our people. We prioritized first exporting, then putting a ban there. We kept chasing jumlas. We kept chasing headlines. I mean, please remember, India could have vaccinated a large section of its population much before we did. We were only chasing headlines. As far as elections are concerned, yes, that is true. They have won an election, and I do not deny, in a democracy, I think winning an election is a big deal. They have won. But I think they have also a lot to offer for how have they handled things. And if I may dare bring into this, forget about every other achievement or failure. I think our society is divided more than ever before. I think the tension, the fault lines in our society, in our social fabric are much more visible than ever before. And the BJP does it by political patronage. How is it that in the last 75 years in this country, nobody had the audacity to get on stage and abuse the Mahatma. But under this government, right under the Prime Minister and Amit Shah's nose, you have people abusing Mahatma Gandhi and no action is taken against them.
No, who's done? One minute. Supriya Shrinate, who has abused the Mahatma under the Prime Minister Amit Shah's nose? Its rhetoric is one thing. You've got to provide hard. Who's done that? Give me an example.
How? I am telling you. I am giving you very hard. I am giving you examples. When before elections in Uttarakhand, and this is a script that the BJP follows. Wherever there is an election, go there, vitiate the environment, divide the people, bring communal tensions. To answer your direct question, have you forgotten the Dharma Sansad of Uttarakhand, where Yati Narsingha Nand and Wasim Rizvi, or the newly called Jatinder Tyagi, or Kali Charan, or Bajrang Muni? Have you forgotten the kind of words they used for the Mahatma? And for 1.5 months, these people were not arrested. They were only arrested after a lot of social pressure on social media and some sections of the media, and the opposition mounted pressure. No action was taken against them. They were let loose. Within 15 days, they were given bails. And they came out and said they have no regret. You remember what Kali Charan and Yati Narsingha Nand has said about the Mahatma, about women in the BJP. And they've never come to the defense of their women. They've never come to the defense of Mahatma Gandhi. The Prime Minister was lectured by no less than Joe Biden when he was in the US on the legacy of the Mahatma. He head is held in shame, but the reality is you need the Mahatma's legitimacy. You could not say a word to these people. There were 10 states in this country in the beginning of May which had a similar pattern of religious riots, of communal tension. How come Amit Shah did not launch a probe? How come the Prime Minister did not speak a word? As a Prime Minister of this country, he's not just the BJP's Prime Minister. He's my Prime Minister as well. I expect him to break his silence.
Can I therefore ask you one final question? Every government has hits and misses. You have today, the Congress party has only listed out the misses. You have chosen that as an opposition party to show the glass is half empty. That's your prerogative. Is there one achievement of Mr. Modi's government in 8 years that you will give the Prime Minister some credit for? Surely there is one thing that the Prime Minister has done that you say, well done. Are you willing to say that? As they would say in most democracies, bipartisanship should at least encourage you to tell me one good thing, one positive thing that you see that has been done in the last 8 years.
I will really be scraping the bottom of the barrel, and even in the process of preparing this report, we really worked hard to find out the one big achievement. Nothing really comes to my mind, but if you actually press me for an answer, I think he has taught Indian politics how, without doing any work, how on a mountain of lies you can build an empire and make people believe that you're working. I think his जो कैमरा जीवी जो है, जो प्रचार जीवी जो है, उन्होंने वो भारतीय लोकतंत्र को सिखाया कि बिना कुछ काम किए प्रचार करके आपकी दुकान चलती रह सकती है. So that's his big achievement.
Okay, so effectively it appears that the Congress has decided that there is nothing that you are going to give the Prime Minister credit for after 8 years in office. As I said, that's your prerogative as the opposition party. We hope that the BJP spokesperson would have joined us. Sardar R.P. Singh was supposed to join us, but for some reason we've not been able to establish connect with Sardar R.P. Singh. Let's leave it at that. Therefore, Supriya Shrinate, appreciate your joining us and giving us the opposition Congress's perspective on 8 years of Mr. Modi. We'll have a special economy face-off meanwhile tomorrow. Kaushik Basu versus Arvind Panagriya on 8 years of the Modi government's economy report card. Don't miss that. And we'll have a political roundtable on the 30th when, remember, the Modi government's 2.0 was sworn in. Let's turn, though, to my special focus today, because a shocking incident has come to light from Delhi's Thyagraj Stadium in the heart of the national capital. Athletes and coaches at the Delhi government-run stadium have complained about being forced to wrap training by 7 p.m. The reason, according to them, was that Delhi's Principal Secretary Revenue, Sanjeev, Khirwar's walk with his dog at the facility. After the story was broken in this morning's Indian Express and the outrage that followed, Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has now ordered the sports departments to keep all stadiums open till 10 p.m. But the larger question remains, is this clearly another example of VVIP abuse of power? What does it say about the state of our babus and the power that they wield? Take a look.
A picture that's viraling around India, triggering outrage and disbelief. An Indian Express photograph of Delhi government bureaucrat Sanjeev Khirwar coolly walking his dog on the athletic track of Delhi's Thyagraj Stadium. Nothing immediately amiss, you're wondering. Well, a big fight has broken out over allegations that this IAS officer's daily dog walk was forcing athletes to cut short their training.
Delhi government's Principal Secretary for Revenue, Sanjeev Khirwar, was seen in visuals using this professional athletic track for walking along with his dog in the evening. Now, there are allegations that athletes and sportsmen were asked to vacate the sports complex, Thyagraj Sports Complex, by 7 in the evening. And on and around 7:30 in the evening, Sanjeev Khirwar would come to the stadium at least for the past 2 weeks and would use this track along with his dog for a jog and a stroll as if it was his neighborhood park.
Reacting to an enraged public, the Arvind Kejriwal-led Delhi government has extended training time for athletes in stadiums. While there is no substantial proof that the bureaucrat was calling for the stadium to be cleared, a clear case of VIP culture is certainly afoot, with coaches and athletes leaving the stadium over an hour before they normally would.
ये मेरी नज़र में आया था सुबह कि गर्मी बहुत हो गई है, जिसकी वजह से स्पोर्ट्समैन जो हैं उनको दिक्कत हो रही है। 6 बजे या 7 बजे बंद हो जाता है, तो हमने ऑर्डर जारी कर रहे हैं कि सारी स्पोर्ट्स फैसिलिटीज़ हमारी रात को 10 बजे तक, ताकि शाम होने के बाद भी स्पोर्ट्समैन जो है उसका इस्तेमाल करें।
कुत्ते को टहलाने के लिए अगर एथलीट्स को स्टेडियम खाली करना पड़ता है तो ये बहुत शर्मनाक बात है। इसके लिए उस IAS ऑफिसर को माफ़ी मांगनी चाहिए और दोबारा ऐसी गलती नहीं करनी चाहिए।
This stadium is owned by the Delhi government. Why were they allowing anybody to break the rules and to denigrate and to do this act of injustice towards sportspersons and athletes? This question must be asked and action must follow.
Principal Secretary Khirwar hasn't commented on the allegations and controversy, but the collision of entitlement, VIP culture, and the fact that non-cricket sportspersons hardly ever get the attention they deserve has made for an angry cocktail, with the public demanding action.
That's not good because bureaucrats are like, backbone of our India. They are well educated, they are well behaved. But if they will do that kind of thing, so I don't think so that's good for our Indian sport. Especially sports person who coming from very humble background, and they are doing their training and then suddenly they will stop and they say like somebody going to walk or with dog or something like that. That's not good, I think.
ये बड़ी दुखद और शर्मनाक घटना है खिलाड़ियों के लिए, देश के लिए भी। खिलाड़ियों को मनोबल बढ़ाने का हमें काम करना चाहिए, और कोई भी अधिकारी है तो अधिकारियों में से मेरी रिक्वेस्ट यही है कि आप में इतनी पावर है इतना कि आप खिलाड़ियों का टाइम टेबल बदलवा सकते हो।
The photos and reports have brought the IAS Association under a volley of criticism and abuse on social media, with many voices wondering how VIP culture could survive in this supposedly enlightened age. As many have been saying as the story simmered, only in India. Bureau Report, India Today.
So are our government officers, senior government officers, whether they are from the IAS, whether they are from the IPS or indeed the IRS, the new Rajas, the VVIP Rajas who can get away with special privileges that the Aam Aadmi cannot, particularly in the national capital and dare I say state capitals across the country. Joining me now is Shailesh Gandhi, former Central Information Commissioner and an anti-corruption activist. Joining me also is MN Singh, former IPS officer, former Commissioner of Police in Mumbai, will join me in a moment. Ajay Dua, former IAS officer and a secretary to the Government of India, joins me. I want your first reactions to this story because it's a story that many will say, Ajay Dua, reflects all that is wrong with the IAS. A belief that you can get away with certain special privileges that the Aam Aadmi cannot. A stadium is locked out for athletes, but is not locked out for the senior bureaucrat to take his dog for a walk. What does that say about the state of our bureaucrats at times, sir?
Rajdeep, I would totally agree with what has been said by your reporters before you, that this was a reprehensible act, something which is no good for anyone, leave alone an IAS officer, a stadium which was built with public money, 300 crores sometimes in 2010, and was used as a site for the Commonwealth netball tournaments, cannot be got vacated from athletes budding or of certain standing merely because someone else, maybe a secretary to the government of Delhi, because government of Delhi owns the stadium, is coming, or maybe anyone else, that for his private use, the stadium is being got vacated from people who are meant to use it.
Sir, with due regard, Mr. Dua, is this an exception or the rule? I'll give you an example. In Mumbai, for example, a few years ago, IAS officers demanded permanent membership for a club. When they were not being given it, they used their clout to say they would take over the grounds of the club and they would deny the club parking space. It became a huge issue in Mumbai, and eventually the IAS officers won out. They had to be given the extra memberships that they were demanding. So it almost seems as if the IAS can bully people at times. In this case, I'm not saying that happened, but there are cases where people have been bullied to ensure that the privileges are maintained.
I would only submit two things, Rajdeep. One, every IAS officer is not similar to another.
Sure.
It might have been at a particular place, in a particular context, or whether I would say if they did that in Mumbai, and I should have known it, I belong to the Maharashtra cadre of the IAS, or belonged. That such a misuse, I would call it an utter misuse of their powers if that happened.
No, it didn't.
Though
It's
I
not
do
if, sir. I know for a fact. I am a member of that club. I know exactly the kind of communication that went out, and eventually the club decided that we would rather not cross swords with an IAS officer.
I think the club could have held out on their own stand, because I do know at least 3 of the reputed clubs in Mumbai. I happen to be a member of one of them when I was assigned in Mumbai, that they refused to ever dilute their rules, because irrespective, they said, you have to be a director rank to apply. But I can name the two kind of stadiums or the clubs, the Wellington Pavilion as well as the CCI, that unless you are of a certain stature in terms of seniority, you cannot even apply. The question is, if somebody has, in order to cover up their own fault, if they might have committed some error, or if they want to cover it up and they are willing to give in, you can't help that.
Okay.
It was wrong on the part of the IAS officers. It was equally wrong on the part of
Mr. Dua, I'll come to what options a citizen has in such cases, and that's a good point to take to you, Shailesh Gandhi, because, in a way, what can, let's say in this case, the athletes do? Here the story eventually came out in this morning's Indian Express. There was outrage as a result of it, and Arvind Kejriwal's government acted. Obviously, the athletes felt done out of training in the stadium while an IAS officer was walking his dog in the stadium after 7 p.m. Now, it's not in every case that you can summon up this kind of media outrage and build pressure. What is the solution? You've been a former Chief Information Commissioner. What do you do when, let's say, an IAS officer, IPS officer, IRS officer uses his or her clout to, in a way, get unfair advantage, especially we find increasingly in these public spaces?
Sardar Patel thought he had ruled out the feudal influence on India. The kings were sent packing home. Now we've got new kings, people with power, money power, bureaucratic power, or political power. All these kinds of power, and this includes senior people in the judiciary also. All these people with power misuse their power to gain special considerations and get away with special favors. The case that you mentioned of Mumbai is a very well-known case. And Mr. Dua may not be aware of it, but no IAS Officers Association stood up and said this is wrong. I think it is And I completely agree with Mr. Dua that not all IAS officers are similar. There are differences. But what is happening is the IAS officers associations act like trade unions, not representing the interests of the common man and India and democracy.
So you're saying the IAS officers should stand up whenever they see blatant abuse of power by their colleagues. Before I come to you, MN Singh, let Mr. Dua respond
Also,
to that.
just 30 seconds,
Yes.
Rajdeep.
Yes, go ahead.
Also, whenever such instances come to the fore, officers must be suspended immediately, and those who acted with such illegal orders must also bear the brunt.
Okay. Mr. Dua, you want to respond, and then I'll go to MN Singh. The IAS Officers Association doesn't speak out when their own colleagues are involved in abuse of power. They act as a club. They act as almost a private club protecting their own. True or not, or is that an exaggeration?
I would go along with what Mr. Gandhi said. They probably come into the picture in order to defend the rights of the IAS officers or to demand, call it their legitimate or otherwise, what they want to do, but rarely do they kind of criticize what their fellow members have done. Having said that, I would go along with, just give me 30 seconds on that. Mr. Gandhi mentioned about misuse of power by VIPs. I think it's rampant. I just give you an example. I happen to be posted in the city of Pune, with which Rajdeep, you are probably very familiar, at a particular site where Ranji Trophy matches used to be held until the MCS Stadium came up, where the test matches are held. That was owned by the municipal corporation. On a particular politician, during the Pune festival, Ganesh festival, which is there, used to hold bullock cart races there. The moment I saw it, the very first day, I walked up to the track and I said, no more. That was the last race. Even the rest of the races are cancelled for the day. I wasn't very popular with that person in power or otherwise. Similarly, in another stadium, because we own two of them, a test cricketer of India had a shop which was overbuilt in terms of area, etc. I had to tell very clearly, saying that shop will, the protruding portions have to be pulled down.
But will you tell off an IAS officer? The point is, will you tell off your own IAS officers? You're telling out politicians when they abuse power. You're telling off a cricketer who you said was using. What about your own fellow IAS officers? Who will call out an IAS officer when he or she abuses his or her power?
I'm absolutely one with you on that. Anybody misusing his power, the VIP culture days are over. The law of the land has to be followed, and the people who've been associated with formulating of the rules and regulations, they have to be particularly even more careful and make sure that they not only do the right thing, but they are seen to be doing the right thing as well. Okay. And that applies to every bureaucrat, irrespective of the service he or she belongs to.
Let me take that to you, Mr. MN Singh, because the fact is the IPS is no different. We have instances where the IPS also has misused the powers that they have. People are even perhaps more scared in smaller towns of the IPS now than the IAS. Who knows what the IPS officer will do if he or she is denied some privileges. Is there something systemically wrong, or do you believe these are isolated cases?
Now, Rajdeep, you were discussing a very general thing in a very generic term.
I'm discussing, I'm giving you a specific example that was exposed this morning, sir.
Coming to the specific incident which has been reported in the Indian Express today.
Yes.
I went through the news item once again, and I found that the officer has denied it, number one. Number two, the manager of the stadium, he says, I am not aware of any such thing has happened. Number three, the Indian Express representative went there at 7:30. The officer was walking his dog. At that time, there was no player or sportsman in the stadium. So I think this whole the allegation which has appeared, it's like making a mountain out of a molehill.
Oh, come on, Mr. MN Singh.
No, Rajdeep, give me a chance.
Yeah, please go ahead.
The IAS and IPS.
Please go ahead.
Give me a chance.
Please
as far as the VIP culture is concerned, it is there all over the India. It is not limited to IAS, IPS only. Gone are the days.
It is more there than among the journalists and among the politicians and among other people. Now, let me tell you, this whole allegation seems to be highly exaggerated, and it is very unfortunate. It seems that some of the staff of the stadium were not happy that this officer was walking his dog at 7:30 to 8 o'clock, and they might have instigated such a thing to the media. I see no merit in this allegation at all, and I think don't take it a case of an IS and IPS. Yes, there may be individual cases where people are a little high-handed, but those days are gone, Rajdeep. Now there are more politicians and more journalists and more other people who are showing their authority around. All IS, IPSs are moving around in the cities without anything. Nobody recognizes them.
No,
and look at these ordinary politicians. Even a corporator moves about a gunman.
Are you telling me that IS and IPS officers today have less powers and less ability to influence the system than they had, let's say, when you were in service 20 years ago?
Well, Rajdeep, the power is very much there. It is their job. It is their duty. The power is given by the law. It is not that the IAS, IPS officers are grabbing the power. It is there, but these are all legal powers. But flaunting the power, showing off, is, I think, now is being exaggerated. It is not true. Gone are the days. I mean, I have not seen it in Bombay. Bombay, IS, IPS officers are moved about like very ordinary people. I have often seen them shopping in the Amar Sons and Prem Sons and all that, they and their wives. Why are we bashing this host of IS and IPS? I think very unfortunate. Kindly be fair to them also. And this whole allegation against that IS officer that he was walking his dog and he had told the sportsman to shut down, and that is not correct. It needs to be inquired into. I don't think we should take this, defame this officer like this.
You know, I just have a friend of mine having sent me a message. He says a sports and youth affairs director and IPS had ordered athletes and others not to practice in the morning or evening at Kantivira Stadium in Bengaluru a few years ago because his wife wanted to walk alone. When it became a big issue, officials denied everything and the issue got buried. So there is a huge scope to deny, and I'm getting such stories ever since this story broke in the morning in the newspapers. There are lots of instances that are being cited like this. But you're saying this is exaggeration, this is unfair. I'm engaging in IS, IPS bashing.
I'm only limiting myself to this particular incident. I'm saying about this incident.
So, but in this incident,
but you are making it to a general IS, IPS issue. That is unfortunate. That is what I'm saying.
In this incident also, why should athletes not be allowed to train after 7 p.m.? Why should in the heart of summer, athletes can't train after 7 p.m., but a government servant can walk his dog on the synthetic track? It's amazing.
Rajdeep, if the stadium rules allow, by all means, yes, they can do that. No IS officer or IPS officer go and shut it down and say, don't practice. If the stadium rules allow, have you checked up the stadium rules? The manager, the Chaudhary, the manager of the stadium says that the timing is up to 6 o'clock. And in Delhi, 6 o'clock means dark. Then he says, sometimes we go up to 7 o'clock. But this happened at 7:30. Now, if the stadium rules permit...
Are you telling me I would be allowed to walk my dog? Are you telling me I would be allowed to walk my dog on the stadium, which was locked for the average citizen? Come on.
If the stadium rules permit it, yes. If the stadium rules do not permit it, no. Now, like you say, take the case of clubs, CCI or what, Wellington Club here. Dogs are not allowed. You may have a dog, but you cannot take them to the club. Similarly, if the stadium rules do not permit, nobody will take it. No. Sir, why IS officer? No, even ministers cannot take it. Let us check up the rules of the stadium. And let us not go on bashing the IS and IPS as a class. Please, for heaven's sake. We are very ordinary people in the present time.
Shailesh Gandhi, are we bashing the IS and IPS unnecessarily, unfairly? Mr. M.N. Singh says, this is not fair to bash the IS and IPS in this manner. Are we being unfair to them? You call them the new VVIP Rajas.
There is likely to be an inquiry into this incident. And Mr. M.N. Singh has just described the script of what the evidence is going to be. This, in India, unfortunately, our rule of law index has dropped to 79. We are a pathetic system. And people with power refuse to admit that they make mistakes. The right thing, the royal thing to do would be for that officer to say that I made a mistake, I'm sorry. This just doesn't happen because you can get away with complete false statements and the evidence can be multiplied. And media also does not pursue these cases. And media cannot. I can see it. I'm not blaming media.
No, do you believe this is the tip of the iceberg? You were information commissioner. You may have got many complaints about bureaucrats, about police officers. Do you believe this is a tip of the iceberg in terms of abuse of power? And the abuse of power could be, let's say, someone gets membership of a club, of a privileged club, by breaking the rules. Do you believe that happens?
I am only saying that this is not true only of the bureaucrats. This is true of those who wield power. There is slight difference. I'm not targeting only the bureaucrats. Those who wield power are allowed to get away with this, and that is because our rule of law index is so pathetic. We need to do some introspection and say, without a higher rule of law index, India cannot become a great country no matter what else we do.
I've just got another story, and this is a reminder, of course, of how politicians operate. Sharad Pawar and other Maharashtra ministers turned an athletic track into a VVIP car park a few years ago. Story reported, in fact, on 28 June 2021. They used a running track meant for athletes as a parking lot. And this again became a controversy. Mr. Dua, who's the real problem here? The Neta or the Babu? See, Netas will come and go, Mr. Dua. The Babus remain forever.
I think the problem is a little wider than that, Rajdeep. Why does the public tolerate? I go to that extent. If I'm one with Mr. Hemant Singh saying, do not condemn a person merely on the basis of a media report unless it's been established, verified and established, which I'm sure this particular incident at Thyagraj Stadium will be subjected to very soon. But the question is, if there is a blatant misuse, it's an obvious misuse, the media must play its role fully and to the hilt. I actually, if it is true, I compliment these two youngsters, the one who wrote the story and one who...
Okay, so you believe it is a misuse of power if the facts as they have been stated are, and therefore...
Probably. I think it will be very difficult to deny that if it is actually...
Okay,
correct,
let me ask both of you. Let me ask both Let me ask you, Mr. Hemant Singh, in conclusion. Give me an instance where the IPS and IAS officer speaks out against their own. You are a very powerful association. IPS, IAS officers. Why don't they speak out against their own? Why don't they condemn? You've just had a terrible incident today, a few weeks ago in Jharkhand, where an IAS officer was found with crores of rupees, right? She's been suspended. But my point is, when will we see the IAS and IPS officers not acting as some club where they protect their own?
They act as trained
clubs. Well, Rajdeep, as far as the Jharkhand case is concerned,
yes,
the due process of law is in progress. That lady officer has been arrested and been searched, and the law has taken its course.
Sure.
And she will be dealt with. Now, nobody has come out to defend her, because if she has done the wrong thing, she will have to face the music.
Right.
Now, my point, Rajdeep, is that this particular incident, which is the topic of the Indian Express reporting today, is contentious, appears to be true, seems to be exaggerated. In any case, no, you do not take it to the IAS and IPS. Why are people jealous of IAS and IPS? IAS and IPS are public servants. They are doing donkey's job. And to paint the whole class of IAS...
Sir, I have high regard for you from your days when I was a cub reporter and you were police commissioner of Mumbai. Itne bhi bechare nahi hai. Please don't call them... I'm not saying Raja hai, but bechare to nahi hai. Please don't say poor IPS officers.
Rajdeep, you are the grandson of an IP officer.
Yes, I am. I am the grandson, but I am also seeing a police commissioner who now is being prosecuted or is being charged in your case with serious corruption. But that apart, let's not call them bechara. Let's agree that the IPS, IAS need to take a strong stand if any of their colleagues abuse their power. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, of course. I will always say that any corrupt officer, any officer who has misused the power, must be punished, and punished very severely. Okay. I do not stand for any officer who has misused his power. Like what is happening today in Maharashtra is so pathetic, and I feel ashamed of it. Let me tell you very publicly on your channel what is happening, and I hope that they will be punished. But then this is very unfortunate. Don't please, my only point is, IS, IPS as a class They are the backbone of the administration of the government anytime, and they are doing the donkey's job. So don't paint them with the same brush. The whole service.
I won't.
Individual officers must be punished.
Okay, I think that's fair. Let's not paint an entire class of officers because of perhaps the cases that come to light. But clearly it's time for introspection. Let me tell you, we in the media also need to introspect. Look at the number of facilities that perhaps we get with our accreditation and other benefits that we might get. So us in the media, you in the police, you in the bureaucracy, maybe someone in the judiciary, all need to look at the VVIP culture and of course our netas who are top of the pyramid. Shailesh Gandhi, MN Singh, Ajay Dua, all old friends from Mumbai days, thank you very much for joining us on the news today. Let's turn from there to our ground report today because remember in Jammu and Kashmir the targeted killings are continuing. The latest of course was a television actor, Amreen Bhatt, who was killed by terrorists outside her residence on Wednesday evening. Her 10-year-old nephew, Farhan Zubair, received a bullet injury. They both were shifted to a nearby hospital in an injured condition where Amreen was declared dead. It marks a new phase of targeted killings in the valley. Take a look.
She loved to sing, dance and perform. Her talent made her a well-known figure in the Kashmir Valley. But radical Islamists in Kashmir fumed at her popularity. On Wednesday, she fell to terrorists' bullets. Kashmiri television actor and social media star Amreen Bhatt was shot at right outside her home. Just like policeman Saifullah Qadri's 9-year-old daughter, who witnessed her father's killing and was shot and injured by terrorists, in this case as well, Amreena's 10-year-old nephew also was shot at and was injured. Family and colleagues are in shock that Amreen became an innocent target of terror.
पौने 8 बजे 2 बंदे आए, उसने ढूंढा अमरीना, मेरा छोटा भाई उधर, उसी को बोला अमरीना कहाँ है, उसने बोला वो अंदर है कमरे में, उसने बोला उसको आवाज़ मारो यहाँ निकालो बाहर, अमरीना आया बाहर उधर, उसने बोला 2-3 दिन हमारे साथ आओ शूटिंग पर, मैं शूटिंग कहाँ वो बड़गाम के साइड में, उसने बोला हम उधर आज नहीं आऊँगा, मैं 5-6 दिन रेस्ट करूँगा, बस इसने पिस्टल निकाला था, फिर मारा फायरिंग, मारा गोली यहाँ बच्चे को आए यहाँ।
2 बंदे आए थे, मेरी बीवी यहाँ पर गाय को दूध लेने गई थी, वो इस साइड में थी, तो अंदर से ये वो थी मेरी सिस्टर और मेरा बेटा है छोटा, तो 2 बंदे आ रहे हैं, वो कह रहा है कि 2 बंदे आए, उन्होंने बुलाया उसको, कहा कि हमारे आज बड़गाम में शूटिंग है, इधर देखो, वो तो गेट पे निकली उस दरवाजे पे, तो उन्होंने फायर खोला, वहाँ से फायर 2-3 मारा उनको, इतना ही पता है, फिर मैंने नमाज खत्म किया, तब तक वो भाग चुके थे।
India Today has found out that Amreen was being regularly trolled and shamed by radical Muslim handles on her social media profiles for her videos. A month leading up to the murder, comments on her Instagram profile turned into blatant threats and intimidation. Comments read, "Aren't you ashamed to dance and upload videos as a Muslim woman? I know where you live. You have brought shame to Kashmir." And after her murder, there was celebration, with laughing emojis and one even shockingly stating, "Dance in hell now, well done boys." Amreen is the latest victim in an orgy of terror unleashed by Pakistan-based terror groups in the Kashmir Valley, which has seen Kashmiri pundits, police personnel on leave, and non-local residents being murdered in targeted attacks. Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's take a break at this point. On the other side, we'll bring you some good news. The story of Captain Abhilasha Barak, the first woman officer to join the Indian Army as a combat pilot. Her story on the other side. You're watching the news today. News without the noise.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com or call 9999892171. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com or call 9999892171. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com or call 9999892171. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
Let's turn to our good news today story. It comes from Nashik, where 26-year-old Abhilasha Barak from Haryana became the first woman officer to join the Indian Army as a combat pilot. Captain Barak was awarded the coveted wings along with 36 Army pilots at a special ceremony on Wednesday. She will be operating the Dhruv Advanced Light Helicopter. It's our good news today story.
Captain Abhilasha Barak. Captain Abhilasha Barak becomes the first woman officer to join the Army Aviation Corps as a combat aviator. In her glorious uniform, she stood proudly as she was awarded the coveted wings by the Director General and Colonel Commandant of Army Aviation at the valedictory ceremony held in Nasik. Captain Barak, who finished her training at the Combat Army Aviation Training School, hails from Haryana's Panchkula. Barak will be part of the second flight of 2072 Army Aviation Squadron. She will be operating the Dhruv Advanced Light Helicopter. The indigenously developed helicopter is used as a cover for advanced columns. The chopper is armed with 20 mm turret gun, 70 mm rockets and air-to-air missiles. Captain Barak belongs to a family of army men. Following in the footsteps of her father and brother, Captain Barak has chosen to serve her country by joining the forces. With Praveen Thakre in Nasik, Bureau Report, India Today.
And we wish her all success. Our image of the day comes from Jakarta, where Indian hockey team entered the knockout stage of the Asia Cup with a remarkable 16-0 win over Indonesia. India needed to win the contest by 15 goals to qualify for the Super Fours and have a better goal difference than Pakistan. Guess what? The Indians scored 16 goals to do the country proud. Our sports persons virtually every week are scaling new heights. We wish them well, and you take care. Stay well, stay Stay safe. Good night. Shubh Ratri. Jai Hind. Namaskar.
Finding the space, post, leaving Faja no chance. Scoring space, running into the semicircle confidently, and then sending.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com or call 9999892171. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.